Good evening and welcome to Dead Air Live. Tonight we have a Somerville resident. She lives and works in Somerville, and she does some other things that are very special. Her name is Elaine Slavin, and she is an artist in residence at Massachusetts College of Art, and she's also on the board of directors for the Boston Performance Artists. Elaine, welcome to our show. I'm glad you could make it tonight.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you've brought some examples of some things that you do in video. Could you tell us a little bit about, you're an artist in residence at Mass Art. Could you explain a little bit what that is?
Well, I'm connected with the Studio for Interrelated Media, which is the department in the school that experiments in various sorts of combining of media and performance. It's extremely open-ended, which is what attracted me there. And I teach workshops in words and performance. And the works we're going to see tonight, for instance, the first two were came from writing and video, putting them together in this created format called a video poem, coming from different sorts of art backgrounds. I got very excited with the possibility of combining these different kinds of visual and verbal media and see what happens when they interconnect.
So that makes you a performance artist rather than a graphic artist or a painter,
yes.
Because there is a performance and a sound performance of a poem and
or a text or a larger text, which happens, and lots of movement and figures, and the video. The video pieces were done as video. You could say they're video performance poems, sort of, if you wanted to put a little category on them. But
okay, that clarifies.
The first two. So
for me, thinking of them more as a performance than just a collection of moving pictures as a moving painting.
Right.
It's not like a moving painting.
Only in the sense that life is theater, and therefore it's a live, it's a three-dimensional, kinetic painting. In that sense, it is. And
we compare it to a theater piece too.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Let's talk.
So they all kind of, connect in together.
Yeah. Let's get right to the work.
Okay.
Then we can talk more about you as a person. I think people will be more interested after they've seen what you do, and they can visualize better. The first piece that we're going to show our viewers tonight is called The Tenant.
Yeah.
Now, what would you like to tell us about that?
Okay. The Tenant is a piece that's a dream piece, as actually they all are. I use a lot of dream imagery in my work. The Tenant is a two-part piece with simultaneous text, poem. The red figure represents a sort of a visualization of a dream, and the simultaneous text, one is the dream and one is the dreamer. So visually, the red figure is the dream, and the hand writing in Chinese on the blackboard is the dreamer. And it really is a dream sort of an experience, and you really have to listen really carefully to try to hear as much of the text as you can if you're not used to simultaneity. And the only other thing I'd like to say about it is that you see the dream, and then you see the dreamer, and that's sort of self-explanatory. And then at the end, as in life, the dream and the dreamer meet, and you awake, and the piece is over.
I see the dream and the what happens. You were saying about at the end the
dream, the figure, the hand of the dream, the dream figure, and the hand of the dreamer connect.
At the end of the tape.
Yes, and it all shows the whole way we try to take control of our images, and that connection is
symbolic of waking up.
Yes.
Okay, let's look at that tape now called The Tenant by Elaine Slavin.
Is she 4, 14, 50? Age is not a constant, never a clear factor high in her stocking feet. When she squats to read the London is relative to your feelings, curl twice behind her back. I have identified my mother. I found her here in runaway cars, used paper towels on the bed, toy poodles, trying to shave off her reflection in the mirror. Not only that, unshaven faces waiting open under the razor. Her next meal transform themselves into fragile hardcover floors. She never speaks. I, for instance, stares out that window. I've been writing this poem 7 hours for a day, 7 years, signaling despite to the last unsigned warnings. Go back. I have been challenging words with raw will. Even when I'm busy, even when I wake up at the nipple of a casual acquaintance, my own blind even thoughts. When I sleep, I am still hungry for answers. Her eyes feed on my air like fish. Did you think I could stop? Is she blind? I refuse to accept your attempts to civilize. Sometimes I feel her legs, soft and pliant, as inevitable as worms, look curl hopefully towards my neck. I am not as dumb as you think. But nothing else happens. Nothing really happens when you think it must. I haven't been able to leave this room for weeks. Nothing changes. Waiting for one of us to make the first move. To say, open your blouse, only the claim made. Take me in your arms, the commitment retrieved. Feed me, can keep us clear, the touch of the encroaching skin rock. Something we both dread and want.
Okay, we're back. Wow, that brought up a lot of questions for me, watching it. It's very different than watching TV.
Charlie's Angels.
Yes, things like that. It is the audio, the sound is a little bit difficult to follow. The voices one on top of the other. Why did you do that? Was there a reason? Did that give it?
It was originally written that way because one is the dream,
yeah,
and the other is the dreamer who is commenting about this dream that's being described.
So the speaking
she,
poem is,
you know,
the
and then
dreamer.
the I is the sort of superego taking control, and then writing in Chinese on that blackboard is identified with that voice, and the voice of the other of the red figure. The red figure is the tenant that you know, that occupies. These are sort of all the sort of subconscious things that occupy us, and that's kind of connected to the trunk, the trunk of the unconscious. You know, taking out the dolls, which are all kinds of selves, all kinds of images of ourselves that we have, and the writing in Chinese is a very pictorial language, so it's a dream language. So the idea of trying to take control of the kinds of things, the kinds of experiences we have in dreams through this very pictorial kind of dream language, you see. And then at the end, there's a certain convergence which happens between the two. So one is
Yeah, I
more
saw
conscious
that.
and one is very super conscious.
Mm-hmm. It's convergence. I
Kind
saw
of the
that.
role of the artist, that sort of thing.
Explain that, the role of the artist. By that
Anybody
you
who
mean-
writes something, or anybody that paints something, anybody that performs something, is trying to make trying to sort of set some sort of order on chaos in some way, and sort of bringing out by pointing out, just by that process of control, and making it sort of a paradigm of a certain kind of a view of existence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so why was it called The Tenant? What?
The tenant is the strange little figure that crouches on the bed, and that sort of hides behind everything. The tenant represents all of the images, dream imagery, repetitive dreams people may have that tenant us, that are tenants in our psyches.
I see. Okay, I understand that. Yeah, thank you for answering that question. Our viewers at home, if you have questions that you'd like to ask Elaine, please call in. Our phone number is 628-6750. Oh, okay, I have more questions.
Okay.
At the end with the hands joining, you said that was the coming together, and one of the hands opened up and something spilled out. What?
Chalk.
That was chalk, and what's the significance of that?
That's the writing implement.
I see.
And it's a sort of a yielding to, and a flowering. It was a sort of a visual, sort of a flowering and a yielding to the meeting of this one chosen doll, or one image, or just one self of the many different selves we have all through our lives, from children on up to adults and all through. And there's the two meeting, and that's the end of the dream. And it's something to wake up is something we both dread and want.
Oh, I see. When you made this tape, when you conceptualized it and everything, what did you expect the viewer to get from it? Did you expect it to raise questions from the viewer? Did you expect people to be able to figure this out for themselves? Or did you just want to show it and have people...
I just wanted to do it.
And you wanted people just to get their own ideas from it, or you wanted to communicate your ideas? What do you think happens to the viewer?
I sort of believe that, well, you're asking me an aesthetic question about my aesthetics, and
yeah.
I could discuss that for a long time. I would say in brief, I really feel that I leave it up to the viewer and the experiencer of it. For instance, I'm not going to not do a simultaneous thing because some people might not be able to hear it, if that seems appropriate to do.
Yes.
But I try to use images to some degree that are archetypical, in other words, that they are shared by our unconscious. We all have associations with dolls and trunks. So I try to pick things that do have a certain universal association, even if people aren't conscious of it. Whether, at what level it works for people is really what they bring to it. And I just hope for the best.
Yeah. I picked up sort of some feminist images from it when I first saw it originally, taking the dolls out, and I did get sort of a sense of it being at least, sort of the different selves, and ourselves either being in a role of motherhood or taking care of little things or growing up.
That's interesting.
Things like that. Okay,
I didn't. So it's you. So you brought that, and that's a perfectly valid way to see it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on. Let's talk about the next one. Is there something else that you'd like to add to that? All right. Well, our next tape that we're going to see is called The Message. And what would you like to say about that one?
This piece is in quite a different vein. This piece is, again, this piece has a traveler in it. And it's really about how one wanders through life and is suddenly in a situation in which it's a sort of a Murphy's Law or Twilight Zone kind of experience, that things happen and realities change. This piece was based on a text, but it was expanded. In other words, I wrote expanded text. It was shot here at Warner also, like the first piece. produced by Warner. And this piece was expanded to include various different segments. We might talk afterwards about what some of the symbols are. One thing I should point out, somebody that had previously seen the tape said that I should mention that, you know, since it was shot at a distance, one thing that the traveler opening up the book, it says how to decide, you know, a guide for women, and that doesn't really, it's a woman traveler, okay? But it isn't feminist in that sense, it's just a woman traveler. It would be it's easiest for me to write about a woman traveler, obviously.
Yes, you are a woman. I think that's what I got from the other one, too. I don't know if it was so much feminist, but it was just your personal experience. You are a woman, and I think maybe if it was a man was a dreamer, he'd be pulling guns out of the trunk or something like that. Okay, shall we go to that tape now?
I think this is a very good time to go to that tape.
Okay, let's look at this tape now. It's called The Message.
The message comes up on the screen. Neon signs that read out, "Eat," or "Rest here." You open the door and walk in. You believe what you see. Some tables, some chairs, a working stove, and a man in a tall white hat. Someone comes and asks you for your order.
Yes,
What's this?
the specialty of the house.
I'll have that.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You do not know that you have just given the password.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
When the gun is delivered under a silver cover, you smile and say,
There's been some mistake.
There has been some mistake. There has been some mistake. There has been some mistake. There has been some mistake. There has mistake. There has been some mistake.
There has been some
mistake. There has been
some mistake.
instead, they schedule you for target practice. Your instructor imagines how it would feel to be gunned down at sunrise by his prize student. You already own a black hat and overestimate your chances.
Look here.
You tell him,
Why don't we settle this thing between us once and for all?
instead, he invites you home for dinner.
Find you've been too stimulated lately? Well, Cavalier Coffee is here to say, let it rip, so you can rest in peace. R.I.P. Yes, Cavalier, the prince of decaffeination, has finally located a soil so rich the Ayatollah has agreed to release the hostages in exchange for access to this secret place. But the Cavalier has refused all offers, choosing instead to offer you, America, a coffee bean so rich it actually takes on more flavor as our chemists suck the caffeine out of each individual bean. Just look at these beans. Have you ever even seen a coffee bean this size? And the colors. Not just your average bean, as you can very well see for yourself. Now, let's just take one of these beans and place it in your average glass of water. Just watch those beans go to work. That's what I call real flavor, folks. Not your nasty package stuff that makes you think of your next doctor's appointment. This is Cavalier, the coffee that's sexy as well as soothing.
When the pill
Think
is
about it,
dropped
America.
into your coffee, you
Isn't
lie
there
back
someone
and wait
special
for your
you'd
life
like
to
offer
flash
a
in
cup
front of your
of
eyes.
Cavalier decaffeinated coffee to
Instead,
this very
you wake up
minute?
on the restaurant floor,
Believe me, your friends will never
a smoldering
be the same.
gun in your hands,
You didn't, they'll gasp
your
in
hair
amazement.
in ruins.
But only you will know for sure that you most certainly did. Find you've been too stimulated lately? Well, Cavalier Coffee is here to say, let it rip, so you can rest in peace. R.I.P.
When the
Yes,
police
Cavalier,
drag you out
the prince
from
of
under the
decaffeination,
shattered neon,
has finally located a soil
You are
so
still
rich,
trying
the
to
Ayatollah
formulate
has agreed
words.
to release the hostages in exchange for access to this secret place. But the Cavalier has refused all offers, choosing instead to offer you, America, a coffee bean so
But on the
rich
way to the
it
station
actually
house,
takes on more
the
flavor.
flashing red
Our
light
chemists
reminds you
suck
of something.
the caffeine out of each individual.
Listen, you whisper. Do you think you could go back and look for my legs?
Legs, 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 legs.
Even seen a coffee bean this
Well, Elaine, what's the message? What's the message from this tape? We all get our own messages from it. What's the message you intended?
Something gets everyone in the end. Watch out what gets you.
Okay, we have a phone that you can call in and ask Elaine any question you'd like about these videotapes. Our number is 628-6750. Now, let's continue on with this conversation. What else about some of... I got a lot of this commercialism from this one. Society, media, messages like that. Can you comment about them?
Oh yes, that's the whole point of neon signs that read out "Eat" or "Rest here," and he's a neon figure. He's a neon establishment figure. And then, see, this relates back to your question before about, oh well, if it's a woman figure, you're going to have dolls. Not necessarily true. You see, people participate in all different ways. And the idea of being in this restaurant and ordering the wrong thing on the menu and it's the password, and then what happens after that is a total disintegration until the traveler at the end has lost, her legs have been cut off by the neon at the end. You know? And there's many different levels of reality working in this piece too. The symbol of the establishment and the commercialism, those are obvious, easy pot shots to take in sort of as a symbol of things that aren't about our true selves. And you know, the idea of getting to your true self involving always remaining awake, which goes back to the first piece of becoming awake. You see, waking up in more than one sense. Sometimes you're unpleasantly jolted. You know, the Murphy's Law syndrome and all that.
Yes,
sort of
that's
stuff.
what I was going to say about this tape, that it's nightmarish in a way. It's like, everything's going wrong, everything's sort of haywire, and
when
like
you
you
think
say,
you're taking control,
ending up in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, you think you're taking control. You're wearing a black hat, you know.
Yes.
You know, you think you can be one of the bad guys, and you know, so there's that sort of sense to this. And of course, I'm also having fun at the same time. I mean, I see it as humorous.
There was a lot of humor.
I
You're
see it as
saying the
humorous.
pot shots at the commercialism and everything.
Yeah,
It's something we all like to laugh at.
Yeah. So it's that kind. It's really that kind of work, and also that different levels of reality come in. In other words, there's the level of being in the restaurant, and then you start going to different levels of reality. In this case, you're still, when the police drag you out from under the shadowed neon, you are still trying to formulate words. Again, a means of taking control or writing a script in any way, you know, in the sense of taking, you know, as a symbol of control. And again, as I say, the woman figure is a traveler who happens to be a woman. I wouldn't say, I think she's just a general human identity.
Yeah. You wrote all of this, right? You wrote the words,
and this I did the video score for, and the stuff that's said by the man is the original text, and then I expanded it and added text and added that little performance thing with the commercial, and sort of expanded this to include a sort of going across time in a different way, not a dream time, but more of a nightmare time, I would suspect, because the real world is intruding in not in a pleasant way in this particular piece.
I see. So, well, could you just outline the different levels of reality, just to clarify, that are in this? You're talking about the reality of the commercial world, and then there seems to be reality of
which comes
of
back
a dream
to haunt
state.
you, which comes back to haunt you as video, in the sense of at the end everything goes. In other words, it happens. You really can't see it on the monitor. Again, it's something that's kind of lost in the work, but what you're seeing when he's standing at the end with this figure wrapped around him, one level is replaying the very first scene when she's in the restaurant, and the other level is playing the commercial. And so it's gone up to another level of, it's almost like just an aesthetic statement at that point.
I think I see. I think I understand. How about, shall we move on and talk about the last tape that we have tonight? It's called The Script Writer, and this is very much a performance, I understand.
Yes, yes. This was a piece that was performed last June 21st, Father's Day, at Winthrop Beach, Point Shirley, under very hazardous conditions of lots of rain and rehearsals, and the video was not under the best conditions too. And it was performed in an open environment, and here it wasn't the commercial world that interfered, but the plane, well, in a sense it was the planes. And it's really a document. So what happened during the performance, which happens in a three-dimensional space, was a sort of, we just got parts of the piece, and someone else had taken slides, Joan Albert, who doesn't have credit on the end of this, but she took the slides. And I did what I call a performance montage, which is some of the part, in other words, basically the parts that came out mixed with different slides, which make text statements that were made in the piece. But you won't have a linear continuity of theme in this. There's going to be a bit montage-y, things coming in and out. I would suggest a good way to look at it is to just kind of just go with it and
montage, you mean a collection of different pictures?
That's right.
Video pictures.
Some are live and some are slides.
Oh, I see.
And they're mixed. Slides and the live are mixed. And so it's basically connected as a montage to sort of try and give some sense of what the experience of doing this piece was like, and some sense of the whole performance experience. But again, it's only parts of it, and it's sort of a Xerox of a painting, because that's very kinetic. You asked me before about performance and related to video and theater, and this is here. It's you're not in a studio or a theater. You're out in the ocean with the planes and the lighthouse and the boats, and it was like taking a pea and dropping it into infinity and watching it get chopped up, and then sort of expanding it into the space so that it couldn't have been performed in any other space but that.
I see. So you feel that adds interest to this piece.
That was the most interesting thing to me, was to watch how the environment cut into my script. Because remember, the piece is called The Script Writer, and the figure in the robe is the script writer trying again to take control of environment and life.
Which is you?
Anybody, really.
Oh, yeah, in this case, because it's your work.
I just use myself as an energy field for those kinds of issues in this work.
Okay, let's look at that tape now. It's called The Script Writer. Let's watch.
Okay.
Hunting, burning, mapping, hunting, burning, hunting, burning, hunting, mapping, hunting, mapping, burning, mapping, hunting. hunting, burning, mapping.
When I was a child, I believed in ceilings, and rooms were important. Until I began to dream. I am trying to pass. To get past a power that will not let me pass between rooms. I am trying to open an invisible door. I have tried it before, but the floor gathers me up.
These words make me doubt you.
The real danger is to be haunted by alien versions of the self.
I am alone in this strange place. My people have gone to live in another. I call to them,
a closed book I keep on my desk.
Even crazy people seem just like you and me until you look under the hood. The
What
spin-off.
does that all mean?
Well, you've just seen one segment of it, so. Well, what would you like to ask me?
I don't know.
Who were those figures who came out?
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, it was shot, as I said, it was shot near Deer Island and the lighthouse and the airplanes. And you're really seeing just really one segment of quite a long piece where so much happened afterwards.
I see.
And in this particular work, again, there's the person who is mapping, hunting, and burning, which is the process of life, trying to make maps. Those are the flags. We're always trying to make maps of the universe or map ourselves in a space, carve out a space for ourselves. But things always interfere. The alien versions of the self that come in with the plastic bags and put on those white shirts and start sort of just objectively building a rock wall, which is what people do in life. You know, and this person, wait a minute, you know, and they're just building this rock wall. It's just the process of life goes on, and it's indifferent, you know. And then you have the planes crashing through the text, which I particularly love because I love doing sort of semi-rebellious things that aren't considered part of a particular genre and seeing what happens when you rub them the wrong way, so to speak. You know, it's
In other words, you enjoyed the planes coming in and
I
ruining
loved
your
it.
video
Ooh,
piece.
I thought it made
But
the
it-
performance, really, because
Yeah.
I really thought that was the ultimate heckler. See, there are hecklers, those two that come down and say, that's crap, next minute. They're the hecklers.
I see,
So those
yeah.
are some of the things. So, in other words, again, this figure represents all of us on our travels through life. And again, these are very dream imagery oriented things. And the figure running towards the water is kind of, again, a dream, sort of related to the doll figures in the beginning, in that she's building a sandcastle through the whole thing. So she's a symbol of a past and childhood and dreams. And at the end, everybody comes around to this. There's so much more that happens.
Yeah.
There are bread words thrown on the water, the universal questions, who, what, when, where, and why, by these fisher folk, you know, who come storming in. And at the end, everybody joins around the sandcastle. So you really can't get the meaning of the work from this excerpt, but you're seeing just the beginning. Mixed with some other aspects that happened later, some other texts that happened later. And what you actually saw was the first part of the montage. I think that it's very difficult. I mean, what you really get from this segment is a sense of what the experience of doing a piece out there actually was like. And it was probably one of the most difficult things I've done, but it was quite an experience.
Good, I'm glad. I believe we have a phone call on line 1. Let me see. It's Preston.
I'll call you back in a little while.
All right.
Okay?
Hello?
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
How many artists are there now in Somerville, and are there any other places that they can have a co-op set up?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. Do you know anything about this, being an artist in Somerville, Elaine?
No, I know that, you know, the Somerville Producers Group, you folks exist.
Yes.
And Warner Cable, from where we're broadcasting, is open, I think, to people who work in video. And then there's Vernon Street, right? Which
there's
a
the
studio.
studios of artists on Vernon Street.
But I don't really know of any co-ops that I particularly know of in the way in which I think you're referring to it.
Well, thank you very much. That answers my question.
Oh, it does? Good.
Okay.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you for calling,
All
sure.
right, bye-bye.
What was that?
Okay. We have another call on line 2? Line 1?
Line 2.
Hello?
Hello. I was wondering what, if any, has been the critical reaction to these tapes.
Quite varied.
Excuse me?
Quite varied.
Quite varied?
Yeah.
Like what?
From people that really like them to people that hate them to people that are sort of stuck in between. And each time, you know, it's a really interesting question because it's really relevant to any kind of work you do. You know, depending on what particular school you're going along with at that moment, if you're going along with a certain group of people and their aesthetics and their ideas of art, then they're going to like it. And then you'll show the same work or do the same performance in a totally different environment and have a totally different reaction. So it's really, and that brings up the question, it's real hard to judge your own work that way because you can always get a tremendous variety of reaction. And I found that's been very true all along. I don't know, is there anything else you want to ask about that? Any specific?
I was just, you know, wondering like what you do when you make, you know, art video, where you take it to.
Well, it's been shown.
Be able to get critical review to it.
Oh, well, I showed it at the Zone Gallery in Springfield, Massachusetts, and it was sort of covered by the 11 o'clock news there, and I was interviewed by them. As I'm not sure I pointed out, I work in lots of different media. I wouldn't say specifically video by itself, and it really all depends on what particular project is up in mind. And I've done live performances on the subway, and that wasn't videotaped, but that was covered by National Public Radio, and it was a favorable review. It really all depends on what people bring to it, what their own backgrounds and interests are.
So you kind of see the use of video for yourself just as a documentation tool as opposed to video as an art form?
No, I see it in two different ways. As a documentation tool of performances and as an art form in itself. And I've sort of used it in, not in the sort of classical video art way, I don't think. And as I say, what I've done is sort of interrelate different kinds of media, as we discussed in the beginning of the show.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Oh, I'd like to ask the caller. Hello, are you still there?
Yeah?
I'd like to get your reaction, some feedback from you. What did you think of the videotapes?
Well, quite truthfully, I thought they were kind of boring.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate your opinion. Thank
Hey.
you. Bye now. Hey, Elaine, what plans do you have for the future?
Well, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I think that I probably will be performing in Boston at a gallery around in September.
Sorry.
And perhaps maybe working on another videotape or something, you know, and this all remains, you know, to be seen. I am working on some ideas now. What particular genre or form they'll take, I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm interested in these ideas. You know, you can say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But
I'm
I was
interested in the fact we found it
for
boring.
the meaning of life. Oh, you're hung up on that?
interesting.
I wanted to just go over that.
Oh,
I didn't.
no, I think that's interesting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Would you like to comment? Why is it interesting to you? Or?
Yeah, because I think that if your expectation in seeing this particular work is to just see video and you don't hear the text or don't pay attention to ideas that are going on, then you might find some of it boring. Yeah.
You'd be bored.
Yeah, and the last tape was, as I said, a problem tape. So.
Okay. Well, Elaine, thank you very much for coming
Thank you for
tonight.
having me.
It was a pleasure. It was really interesting talking to you and seeing your videotapes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to read the credits for our show tonight. Our producer was Greg West. Our director is Linda Rubin. Switching was Nella Waters. On camera was Claire Beach and Paul Clover. Doing our audio was John Pennington. Tapes was John Jaffe. Our production assistant was Charlie Tesh. I'm your host, Marcia Green. You can see the show again on Friday at, I believe it's 7 or 7:30, and again on the following Tuesday, a week from tonight, at 9 o'clock. Good night from Dead or Alive.